So we said that tshuva really means that a person has to elevate those things that were seemingly neutral and seemingly didn't have a divine purpose. The things that he talked nonsense, things that are not important, so on, watch TV, whatever he did. And all those minutes that were like nothing, the tshuva had seemingly wasted. He says, still, even then, you had a divine spark in you. So that divine spark, if you call it up, how could it be? For instance, you would understand that during those moments, Hashem still kept you alive, even though you were doing something.
If you're doing a Avera, never mind.
Okay. But in some sense, you could say people have maybe an easier time with feeling that when they did an Avera, Hashem was with them, because Hashem wants you to do tshuva there. In a certain sense, doing tshuva on the neutral, on things that don't seem to be, can I just waste my time because I didn't have strength to do anything, whatever it was, how could you elevate that? So to feel the divine spark, to know that it was there also at that time, is perhaps some kind of elevation. It could be that he means more than this. That's at least what comes to mind. So it's called nachpesa deracheinu v'nachkora, that we have to search our ways and to seek Hashem even in those ways. שפשפש מעשיו ודיבריו מחשבותיו שעברו וחלפו מיום היותו אשר לא טובים וזהו ביקשתם משם. So here he seems to go back a little bit that things are not good. Not that they're evil, but he calls them not good. And they weren't necessarily negative, but there was something not good about them because of the very fact that I wasted the time. And it's a feeling that people have about a lot of things in the world. For instance, people ask, why is this person alive? What does he do in the world? Chas v'shalom, somebody who has a severe handicap or something like that. What does he already do in the world? He's part of what Hashem wants in the world. And so he has to go back and feel that even though it seems to me that I'm not contributing to something, there is a reason for it. So this type of tshuva is needed during Elul. That's what it means that the king is in the field. The field here, he says, is the place where you serve the moments that, like the field serves the city by bringing a produce, Am Shebasadot. In the same way, those moments, even though they don't seem to be important in any way, they serve the rest. You could maybe say that a mashal for this would be all the 98% of DNA, which is inactive as far as we know. So it's like the sadeh, and we don't know exactly what it does. It must do something, otherwise the body wouldn't carry it around. Hashem wouldn't create it. So how does it serve us? There's a spark in there. You have to figure it out. כי לשון זה הוא דבר שיכול ממש להראות עליו באצבעו, אשר אמר עליו כי הוא זה. When you say זה, כן, ביקשתם משם, the idea of you shall seek from there. When you say sham, how do you say sham? There. You point your finger, there. So he says, there must be something that you can actually point at. אשר יאמר עליו כי הוא זה, you can point at it and explicitly define what it is. ואי אפשר לומר כך רק על הקדוש ברוך הוא. To ask for Hashem, to seek Hashem there, you can only say this about Hashem. כמו שכתוב, זה כלי וענווהו. Hashem is the only thing upon that you can really point at. כי מלוא כל הארץ כבודו, because he's everywhere. אבל מקום ומשכן הקליפות נקרא שם, כלומר עמוק מאוד למטה. So he builds here a very interesting antimony, I guess, between contrast, between two words in Hebrew, this and there. Good? Then when you say this,
you can't say Hashem is there because Hashem is everywhere.
I didn't say it right. I didn't say it right the first time. So when you say that Hashem is this, here is Hashem. Here, ze, that's Hashem. When you say there, you're not pointing at anything really. So he's saying that that's the difference between the life of a person when he knows what's going on and when he's not aware of what's going on. When I'm not aware of what's going on, it's called there. It's in general, there. But the there you might think is just neutral. So there is anywhere. He says, no, when you say there, it really means something that's that's inhabited by the klipos, by the impurity. Meaning, in other words, if it's not conscious, if you're not aware of it, it falls into the realm of the impure. It's like a given. It's one of the staples of the Alter Rebbe's thought is that there's really no neutral ground. The moment that your consciousness leaves something, the moment that you become unaware of what you're doing, or just do something just for the heck of it, and there's no real reason behind it, so you've surrendered that place in yourself, in what you're doing, to the impurity in the world. Because purity comes from the mind. The mind is pure. So it's called Sham, kilomar amok me'od lemata. So you'll seek Hashem from there, from those places that you couldn't point at before and say, here's Hashem. Hashem is, you have to have some intent that what you're doing, everything that you're doing is for some purpose. Don't be without purpose. And this is one of the main things that evolution tries to uproot from a person's mind, which is why it's false. It can't be right, because the world has purpose. So if you understand what evolution is really saying, you can't say I can fit evolution into some new picture of how Hashem functions, because one of the staples of evolution is that it's random, that there is no purpose. It's not just that the process is random, but the result is random. That's a very important thing, because if it wasn't random, if they would say, no, the process is random, how you get there is random, but where you're going to go has purpose. So it would be half a consolation. So with that, we could live at some level. But to say that everything is random, the process and the result, that you can't have, because it has to have purpose. That's what it means to live with Hashem, to live with God. If you live your life without feeling that there's purpose, it's like you're not living with Hashem. זהו שדרשו רז"ל על פסוק קראו שם פרעה העביר המועד. So the full pasuk is קראו שם פרעה מלך מצרים שעון העביר המועד. So the Yirmiyahu says this pasuk. From this pasuk, first of all, what does he want to get? He wants to get the word Sham. And the word Sham by Chazal is the source of the Aramaic word Shamta. Shamta means like what the Goyim would call excommunication. Like to put somebody in Cherem. You put him in Shamta. So Sham has something with casting aside, with taking somebody out. What was the story there? The story there was that Yirmiyahu had prophesied that Paro would battle, the Paro in his time, would make battle with Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And Yirmiyahu prophesied about it once and it didn't happen, and then he prophesied about it a second time and it again didn't happen. So there's a whole explanation in the Gemara. You can read it if you're interested.
Where?
In Moed Katan, Tetzain Amud Aleph. In any case, the Gemara there learns from the word Sham that it means that after 2 times that a person hasn't shown up to court, you set a court date, and 2 times he doesn't show up, he's put in the cherem until he comes. Meaning you don't wait a 3rd time. They learned this from basically Yirmiyahu was saying that if he doesn't show up for the next battle, the next opportunity, Hashem will take him off his throne. It's like saying that there's a certain determinism to history, that if you don't stand up to the occasion, history will throw you out. And that's basically what Yirmiyahu was saying. That Paro has to fight Nebuchadnezzar. He has to fight Babylon. And if this Paro is not going to do it, this king of Egypt is not going to do it, Hashem's going to put some other king of Egypt who will do it. And you get an opportunity. But the main thing is that the word Sham then becomes casting aside. So it's saying that Uvikashtem Misham, you'll ask from there, you'll seek Hashem from there, is like saying you'll seek Hashem from those moments in your life that were cast aside, that you gave up on, that you don't think had meaning. רוצה לומר, הדרך של המועד ושמחה העביר לשמחה של הוללות. And he adds on this something more, and he says, what does it mean, העביר המועד? So we say that he missed the opportunity. He says more than that. הדרך של המועד ושמחה העביר לשמחה של הוללות. That there was an opportunity to make those moments into moments. Moed is like a moment. moment of simcha, he turned it into a simcha of holalut, of just debauchery. Meaning you didn't use the moment for what it was really worth. So, our picture of leisure didn't exist back in the Alter Rebbe's time. I don't think there were very many. In England, you have an occupation called a man of leisure. Have you met any of those? You never met one of those? Among the nobility, they used to have those people who dealt with nobility affairs, and they also had like people who didn't do anything. They just went around and went into parties and auctions, whatever. They beat the wind with people. They just talked. So they were called men of leisure. That's what they called them. So that was the earliest concept of somebody who didn't have to do anything. But really, in the Alter Rebbe's time, there was no such thing as a person who didn't need to do anything. Everybody had to work. just to eat, you had to work. Today we have this concept of leisure. So we've been explaining it. The Sham is those moments of leisure where you didn't use it for the right purpose. But the Alter Rebbe is really talking about moments when you went to a party because it was a bar mitzvah, because it was a simcha, because it was a wedding, whatever it was, and instead of using the simcha in order to grow closer to Hashem, you used it for debauchery, you used it for holalut, that was the real leisure that people had back then. The closest thing that I ever read about what it felt like to be in a world where you had to work all the time, and the only respite was a wedding or something like that, and that's why they always did them on Friday night. And weddings used to be on Friday night, not like today. Friday afternoon, started Friday afternoon once people didn't work, and it went on into Shabbos.
Right. And Sunday morning you went back to work.
Yeah, Sunday morning you went back to work. So there was a book by Upton Sinclair. I don't know if you ever read it, American authors. Not for English taste, but still. So he wrote a book called The Jungle. And it was about the Chicago slaughterhouses back in the 20s, teens and 20s. And all these Lithuanian immigrants, they came to live in America. And they were taken to work. That was the work they were offered. And they worked to the bone with the most toxic stuff in the world for years. And this guy, who's the hero of this whole book, the protagonist, he gets married. And so one day of his whole life, that at night, he has no worries. One day in your whole life.
Oh, wow.
And from there it goes south. It becomes a lot worse. But the whole concept, we can't even relate to this. But I think that's what he's talking about, that you had a moment. What we call it today, Tiranut.
No, Tiranut in the army.
Tiranut? What about it? Again, that's how it feels. It used to be that the whole life was something like one long Tiranut, I think. וזהו עניין במדבר הזה ייתמו פגריכם. And that's what it means, that in the desert you will...
Carcasses will fall.
Okay, he says he doesn't add the word carcasses. I guess he stopped it before it became too gruesome. But you will fall. What does it mean? פירוש על ידי דיבורי אותיות התפילה, שהוא בחינת מדבר הזה, כמו שכתוב זה כלי, וכן בעסק התורה, כמו שכתוב ברשם מטות בברוש לומר, זה הדבר, על ידי זה ייתמו, היינו, כמו שכתוב בזוהר, שלח שהוא בחינת תמים תהיה. So he says, through, how do you elevate it back? How do you raise these moments back? It says through prayer. במדבר הזה ייתמו. Here's a different meaning of במדבר, and that's what it means that the melech is bassadeh, that he's in the field, that you are willing to midbar in the sense of speaking. And the midbar in Hebrew also means to speak. So this is a drush. But it means that by speaking, you're able to gain the innocence back. Yitamu, become innocent again, become sincere again.
It reminds me of the story of the guy who learned that if you go 100 days and you don't speak any divine potato,
40 days.
for 40 days, right?
Yeah,
You
the
can see
Baal
everyone over it.
Uh-huh.
You know this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So So we spent 40 days just davening and saying Tehillim and everything, and Eliyahu never came. So he went to Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov says, "What's the problem?" He says, "I didn't see Eliyahu Novi." He says, "What did you do?" He says, "You speak any divine B'Teilim." He said, "What did you do?" He said, "I davened and said Tehillim." He said, "Oh, that was your divine B'Teilim."
Depends how you daven.
Right.
So that's Yitamu. It's like a regained innocence. The reason that people feel not so good about themselves is because they're carrying around a tremendous amount of dead weight. And this dead weight is because I feel like I've wasted my time, because I haven't done what I was supposed to do.
But the Rebbe says that you're supposed to be looking in two directions at the same time. Look at what you haven't done and fix it. But look what you have done and say, okay, this, so I can do things. Geh weiter.
Okay. Yeah. That's most of the time. But during Elul, Melech Basadeh, it's a special time that you can uplift and you can make sincere again the dead weight that you're carrying around. Again, by us, this is a real issue. By him, it was much less of an issue. He was talking about certain moments, even. I don't know how many moments in a person's life. But by us, this is a real issue. People are carrying around tons of.
That's why we never die.
What? That's why we
That's why
die.
we never die.
You could say that the whole concept of dead weight. How do you carry around dead weight? So you have to have gluten. You know, gluten. What word comes from gluten? The pharmacist. Glue. Gluten is the protein that is the basis of glue.
Right.
Because you use it they used to make glue out of flour.
Right.
So it's how you stick the dead weight to a person. You gotta eat a lot of gluten. Your stomach becomes bigger, and there's places to glue on the dead weight. V'sham yamutu. What does it mean that they will die? Nefilat apayim. So how do you? So how? What's in the nefilat apayim? Nefilat apayim is that we fall down. We fall down right after we say Hashem, Hashem, 13 midos of rachamim. Why do we have to say the 13 midos of rachamim before we fall down in nefilat apayim? Nefilat apayim, there's a whole question about whether to fall down or not. The chapter that we read, chapter 25 in Tehillim, the Arizal says not to fall down in that chapter. Why? Because when you read that, because the whole purpose of Nefilat Apayim is to uplift, to bring back to life the sparks that fell down. But to do that, you have to go into the klipos. So here he's saying the klipos are exactly those dead moments where you didn't use your life to serve Hashem. So the Rizal says, when you say chapter 25, you're really going into the klipos. This chapter was written by David HaMelech as an incantation, if you want, to open the gates of the klipos and to allow the person to go down. So if you open the gates, it's enough. You don't have to go down. So Rizal says, the halacha is by him that you don't fall on your face. Meaning you don't do this. In Chabad we do it. So the Ashkenazim solved it in a different way. They changed the chapter. They took from chapter 6 or 7, I remember. And they took a passage from chapter 6 or 7. What did the Sfardim do? The Sfardim follow their Rizal. They don't fall down. They never fall down on the face. The only people who also say chapter 25, which is an Aleph base. It's the first example of Aleph base in order in the Tanakh. So the first people, meaning chronologically, it was written by David, or earlier. The only people that do this are the Lubavitchers. And so what saves you?
They are a bit crazy.
Okay.
Okay.
So what? Mesiras Nefesh. So what saves you? The 13 midos of compassion that you say before. And then you fall down. So those 13 principles, they're what would bring up the sparks without hurting you, without you being hurt. Sham, that they fell there. Sham. That's the beginning of chapter 25. It starts with the Aleph. And that's what it means when it says in the Haggadah, and he took us out of there. So he took us out of there. There was Egypt there. But really what he means in general is that Hashem, with the 13 principles of mercy, is able to take us out of there, out of the klipos, in order to glue us back to Hashem, instead of to glue us to these dead moments. אך מי שפוגם באיזו מחשבה או דיבור וכל שכן מעשה, so all this was neutral, relatively neutral. But now, if it was actually a pugam, that he did something wrong, he did an avera. הנה על זה נאמר, וביקשתם משם, דהיינו שפשפש במעשיו אשר לא טובים, ועל ידי זה יתמרמר ליבו בקרבו, וישוב אל השם וירחמהו. דהיינו שעורר רחמים רבים הניצוץ אלוקות שבתוכו בבחינת גלות. So if he actually did something wrong, so then you can't just walk in and pick it up and lift it up and regain sincerity just by reconnecting it, just by gluing it back to Hashem. There you also have to have you also have to have a feeling of bitterness in your heart. The bitterness is what allows the separation between what's good and not good to occur. Bitterness is a prerequisite for any kind of tshuva that is a tshuva of separation, not just of elevation, but you first to have a feeling that you have to separate the good from the bad. And to do that, you do it by awakening great mercy. Rachamim Rabim. Rachamim Rabim also always refers to the Rachamim the Keter. So it's talking about the 13 principles of mercy. And what am I having mercy? What am I asking for mercy upon? On the spark of divinity in myself. That's already different. It's not the same thing.
Nefesh aluv.
Nefesh aluva. Yeah. We have time? We have a couple more. ועל זה נאמר ליעקב אשר פדה את אברהם. That's what it means that Rachmim, Yaakov is Rachmim. אשר פדה את אברהם, he's able to take Avram out of his exile. Why? כי מידת יעקב היא מידת רחמנות. Yaakov is a measure of compassion, of mercy.
Where was Avram in exile?
See? שעל ידי זה פודה מהגלות, מידת האהבה היא מידתו של אברהם אבינו. So it says Avram was never in exile. So why does the Navi say Yaakov אשר פדה את אברהם? Avram never went into exile, was never in exile. Well, you could say he was in exile a little bit in Egypt. But Yaakov wasn't around then. So what is it talking about? So obviously this is a metaphor. And it's a nevuah from one of the prophets. So it's easy to understand it's a metaphor. What is it a metaphor for? And once I think I wrote even a piece on how it was understood before how this. I think I once wrote something on how it was understood before Kabbalah, like how they understood this verse before Kabbalah. Kabbalah explains that Yaakov is Rachamim, and Avram is Ahava, is love. So what is he doing? So he's using compassion to redeem the love, to bring back the love. What love? The love that a person has for Hashem, and that Hashem has for him. So compassion has the power to bring back love. It's one of the things that I'm always surprised when I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm obtuse, so I don't see it. Is that most people don't work with a dictionary in their head. They don't think. Once you've learned a lot of Chassidus, you've learned a lot of Kabbalah, you learn a lot of Torah, you understand the language is everything. So you have to work with a dictionary in your head. What does a Hebrew dictionary look like? As opposed to other, truth is every dictionary works that way, except that the people don't use it. It has to refer back to how the word was used. How do you know what the meaning of a word is? You can't just define it. You have to have an example. So in English, what are the examples of usage? Where'd they come from? So that was the whole project of the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, which they started in the 1800s. And so what do you search for the first citation, the first usage of the word, and you see how people use the word. Really, that doesn't help very much, because where did the word come from? So you try to say it's from Old French, it's from this. So you can still ask the question about Old French, ask it about Latin, ask it about Greek. How do you know this is what the word means? So, in Hebrew, what do you do?
Simple. In the morning you ask Moshe Gנוט, in the evening you ask Moshe Reiner.
Yeah. So what do you do? So what do we all do? We all go back to Torah, with the Tanakh, because the Tanakh by prophecy tells us what these words mean.
Oh.
So that's how a dictionary really works. A lot of people, they use these words, and they don't know that there's a difference between Na'ava and Rachamim. And they can't even define it. Somebody asked a couple of days ago, based on what the Tanakh says, based on what Chazal say, based on you have to have a source. Somebody asked a few days ago, what's the difference between Yira and Pachad? Tanya, there's a holy Geret that's about it, about the difference between Yira and Pachad. And where does he build it from? He builds it from the sources. Yira b'mocho, Pachad b'libo. It's two different. One's an emotion. One is an emotion. One is a state of mind. Okay.